This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Morning, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. We want to thank Reb Gordon for picking up the breakfast and also for sponsoring today's breakfast. In honor of finishing Meseches Shkolim in the Mishnah Yomis. Mazel Tov to Reb Gordon for finishing Masechta Shkolim and for beginning Masechta Yuma. If anybody wants to join us, you could join us. We learned 2 Mishnayos a day. Last night was Parak Aleph, Mishnah Ches, Parak Beis, Mishnah Aleph. Okay. The Chida writes in the Sefer Moira Be'etzba. The Chida wrote a little Sefer called Avodas HaKodesh. And the Chida says in Ois Reish Chavches, Yom Isru Chag Kadosh Ma'od. Isru Chag is very holy. That's why we have a minhag to eat bagels that have holes in it, because Isru Chag is very holy. V'yesh l'smayach v'ay, and you should rejoice on that day. So the Chida seems to be saying that we should rejoice on Isru Chag Shavuos, Kamasha Kosavti b'Pesach, like I wrote on Pesach. It seems like Isru Chag of Shavuos is no less than any other Isru Chag. And yet, if you look in the writings of Reb Chaim Falaji, Reb Chaim Falaji was one of the great rabbi of Izmir. He wrote the Sefer Moyed L'chol Chai. He brings in Siman Ches Ois Mem Gimel Isru Chag de Shavuos Hu Yoiser Gadol Mishar Moyados. It's greater than the Isru Chag of other Yomim Tovim. V'haya Roy Lehi Aser B'Melacha. Really, it should be aser to do work. The only thing is, with aser to do work, then you know, then the in-laws would be staying an extra day. That would be, you know. No, it's okay.
This week.
This
year was Shabbos.
So the question is, why would the Isru Chag of Shavuos be more chamor than the Isru Chag of any other Yom Tif? So the Reb Chaim Falaji says, look in the Sefer Berkei Yosef. Who wrote the Berkei Yosef? The Chida. The Chida quotes an amazing Gemara in Chagiga on Daf Yud Zayin. The Gemara in Chagiga says, what's the halacha? Are you allowed to bring all the karbanos on Yom Tif, or do you have to bring it the day after Yom Tif? It's machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says Yom Tevayach la'achar haYom Tif. The day of Shechita is after Yom Tif. However, Beis Hillel says the day of Shechita is on Yom Tif itself. However, what if Yom Tif is Shabbos? So then even Beis Hillel is Moedeh Yom Tevayach lamachar. So says the Magen Avram that because Shavuos could come out on Shabbos and the Yom Tevicha is Isru Chag, Memela, you're not allowed to fast on Isru Chag Shavuos, which on Isru Chag of other Yom Tov maybe you are allowed to. In other words, there's a tzad, and it's brought in the Magen Avram. Isru Chag of Shavuos is a completely different being than Isru Chag of any other Yom Tov. Why? Because sometimes it's the day of the Shechita of the karbanos of Yom Tov. Let's talk a little bit about Isru Chag. Where does the word Isru Chag come from? We know it's a pasuk in Tehillim, in Hallel. Isru Chag ba'avosim ad karnos hamizbeach. Somehow it's connected to binding something to the mizbeach. So the Gemara says in Sukkah Mem Hey Amud Beis, Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Kal ha'oiseh isur lechag ba'achila u'shasiya. Anyone who binds the Yom Tif with eating and drinking, Male alav hakasav ki'ilu bana mizbeach. The Torah considers it as if you built the altar. V'hikriv alav carbon. Shenemar isru chag ba'avosim ad karnos hamizbeach. Now the Gemara doesn't say when to eat and drink. So Rashi in Masechta Sukkah says, Isur lachag, aguda lachag, ba'achila u'shasiya, shekoirei lachag oineg b'machal u'mishteh. That anyone who rejoices on Yom Tov with extravagant food, it's considered like you built the mizbeach and you were makar of a carbon. Nothing to do with the day the day after, according to the first Perush in Rashi. But then Rashi brings a second Perush. V'yesh oimrim yom shela achar hachag v'hakavana le'isru chag ba'avoisim behemois avois u'shmeinois. So according to the second Perush in Rashi, Isru Chag refers to the day after. What do you do on Isru Chag? You have fatty animals. Maybe bagels count, because bagels end up having more fat even than an animal. I can't tell you. But according to Rashi's Pshat, the inyan of Isru Chag is the day after. So the question, what's the inyan of eating extra on the day after? So Al Chashulchan Siman Tav Chav Tes Sefei says like this: the simcha on Yom Tif is when you're mechavin l'shem shamayim. The ikar simcha is the karbanos of shalmei simcha, and when the simcha that a person has by eating the shalmei simcha, and he has his spailus hanefesh that's connected to Hashem, that extends to the day after, where you say like this: I ate the shlomim on Yom Tif, but the achila shlomim is 2 days and 1 night. So if I eat the leftovers of the shlomim on the next day, so you're being moisif ki'ilu levad hakarbanos gam kenes hamizbeach. In other words, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, the inyan of Isru Chag is to continue eat the shlomim, which means that if you eat leftovers today, there's no inyan of Isru Chag b'zman she'ein Beis Hamikdash Kayim. The inyan of Isru Chag is to extend the zman of the achilas hashlamim.
Why can't you bring the karbanos on Shabbos?
Because it's not Derech Shabbos.
How it is? I'm saying like all these.
No, the karbanos of Yom Tif, the oilas re'iyah,
Shabbos out.
they're not Derech Shabbos. It's a chiddush that the karban tamid is Derech Shabbos. There's a special exercise of oilas Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, but the karbanos, the shamei chagiga, and the oilas re'iyah is not Derech Shabbos. The tamid is Derech Shabbos. The karban pesach is Derech Shabbos, but even that, it was up in the air. They weren't sure. Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, by the way, also says this svara in the Sofer Sar HaElef. He says, since the shlamim is nechal l'shnei yamim, and they l'chayra had leftovers, so they were masaking an extra day that it's asur lehisanois, so that the achilas karbanos should not come to noisar. Okay, but l'maisa in the svarim they bring various reasons al pi machshava for Isru Chag. And one reason is as follows. We find by Shmini Atzeres HaKadosh Baruch Hu says Kaviyachal, it's Kasha Lai Preidaschem. Atzeres hi, Atzarti Eschem Etzli. So the inyan of Isru Chag, it's very difficult for Klal Yisrael to part from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We were together, b'simcha, b'achilosh siyah, for 2 days or even for 1 day. But nevertheless, it's very hard for us to go back to regular mundane life. So by eating b'simcha on Isru Chag, we're showing how difficult it is for us to part from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I want to share with you the words of the Chasam Sofer. It's almost impossible to believe. Says the Chasam Sofer in Parshas Pinchas, it is known that the simcha that a person is misameach ba'asiyas ha-mitzvah is more valuable than the mitzvah itself. So in other words, let's say a person puts on tefillin. One guy puts on tefillin he just puts it on. One guy puts on tefillin b'simcha. So the guy who put on b'simcha, he did 2 things. He put on tefillin, and he was b'simcha that he put on tefillin. Which element of what he did is more valuable? The element of simcha that he had was more valuable than putting on the tefillin itself. So which means, and not only that, the reward you get for doing a mitzvah b'simcha is greater than the reward for doing the mitzvah itself. Now, having a Suda on Yom Tif is a mitzvah. L'chayra, you need to be misameach that you're zoicha to do the mitzvah of Simchas Yom Tif. Right? Because every mitzvah you have to do with Simcha. So says the Chasam Sofer, you're mechuyev to make a Suda that you were zoicha to make Sudas Yom Tif. Hear this? You're mechuyev to show simcha that you made simchas Yom Tif, so you should really make a suda that you were zoicha to make sudas Yom Tif. Says the Chasam Sofer, when we live in Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to have so much simcha that you had sudas Yom Tif. In fact, you could keep Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael. Everyone's ish yoishev tachas gafnoi v'tachas teinasai. Big deal that you had simchas Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael. But that you could live in America and have Sudas Yom Tif with anti-Semitism and the winds of the world, to be zoichet, to be mekayim, Yom Tif in Galus, it warrants such simcha that we need to be koiveya an additional day of Yom Tif. The second day is a celebration that you were zoichet to keep the first day, says Chasam. In other words, it comes out, what's a greater simcha, Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael or Yom Tif in Chutz La'aretz? Much greater in Chutz La'aretz. It's much greater in Chutz La'aretz, because big deal that you could keep Yom Tif in Eretz Yisrael. In Eretz Yisrael you keep one day and go back to your regular business. But that you could keep Yom Tif in Chutz La'aretz, it deserves an additional Yom Tif to be misameach that you were zoicha to keep the first day. But Bezman Shveis Hamikdash Kayam, and we're in Eretz Yisrael, Eino Tzricham Lasas Yom Tov Sheni. We just make a small thing, Isru Chag. Isru Chag is rejoicing that you kept Yom Tov. The inyan of Isru Chag is, okay, you're eating a bagel, you're mechavein, that I'm besimcha, that I was zoichet to mekayim, the mitzvah of Yom Tov. So in Eretz Yisrael, all you have is Isru Chag. In Chutz La'aretz, you need to be koiveya a Yom Tov that you kept the first day. And then you need Isru Chag that you were zoichet to be koiveya the Yom Tov before. So whatever you're going to eat today, you're going to have a barbecue, I don't know what you're going to have for lunch. You don't have to tell me your personal menu. But whatever you eat. So yesterday's kavana, so we learned recently, Wednesday night, Shabbos, right? That you could go back in time. Because it could be you forgot to have this kavana yesterday on Yom Tov Sheni Shagos. Were you thinking, today I'm being misameach that it was zoichik to keep the first day? Could be you forgot to think that. So today you should think that yesterday when I was keeping Yom Tov, it was to be misameach that I was zoichik to keep the first day. And then today's simcha is that we were zoicha to keep Yom Tov Sheni Shagalias.
Eretz Yisrael has an Isru Chag also, or
Eretz Yisrael has, sure. But their Isru Chag is minor. In other words, to them, their Isru Chag was yesterday. So they just have like a minor thing, okay, we were zoicha to keep Yom Tov, but they're not actually koiveya another day of Yom Tov that they were zoicha to keep the first day. Big deal you could keep Yom Tov in Eretz Yisrael.
So isn't that counter? So why have Isru Chag at all?
For us,
To them,
it's a minor, it's like a minor celebration.
there's levels of Isru Chag.
No. In Eretz Yisrael, keeping Yom Tov is not a big deal. So they have a minor celebration. In Chutz La'aretz, keeping Yom Tov is a major deal. It warrants such simcha that they were koiveya a day of Yom Tov to celebrate that they kept the first day. Then after that, you have a minor Yom Tov that they kept the second day. So now Isru Chag is always a minor celebration.
And we actualize that celebration by doing what?
Eating meat.
So we should eat meat.
That's what the Gemara says. Nobody ever has a problem eating meat. Nobody should have a problem eating meat. Some people don't eat meat. Usually you look at them, they could use a good hamburger. It'll be good for them, you know? Actually, the Gemara says an Am Ha'aretz is not to eat meat. The truth is, the Gemara also says that in order to fully understand Talmudic logic, you need to eat meat. It's Gemara. Anyway, but that's for a different discussion. That's for a different time. Okay, now I want to tell you over a few more quick things. The Bnei Yissaschar writes in the Agar de Perka, Ois Reish Chavav, we say in Shir Shiurim, Im ta'iru es ha'ahava ad shetechpatz. If we will arouse or engender the love for Hashem until ad shetechpatz. The Ramban famously writes that when a person has inspiration avodas Hashem, you need to translate it into reality, into something concrete, to make a kli for the ahava. Ad shetechpatz. You're inspired, you heard something inspirational, you heard a shir, you heard a drasha, you want to do something, take a Kabbalah right away to translate that inspiration to something tangible. So says the Agar de Pirka, that's the concept of Isru Chag. Isru Chag is, you had a Yom Tov, you had a Shavuos, you had Hisoyrus and Limud HaTorah and Hasmadas HaTorah. Who could go through a Yom Tov without experiencing some inspiration in Limud HaTorah and Tefillah? So now you have to translate into that in something concrete. The inyan of Isru Chag is it's not just about a barbecue. It's You want to tie yourself to the Yom Tif. So you want to take upon yourself something concrete to tie yourself to the feelings of inspiration that you had on the Yom Tif. Shiurim says similarly, it's brought in Shas Bikurei Shloimei, that on Yom Tif a person has all kinds of thoughts of Aliyah and Kedusha, and you don't want them to dissipate as you go into the weekday. So you, in order to connect yourself, connect these inspirational thoughts into the weekday, we have Isru Chag. Reb Simcha Bunim in Parsha, he says, if you have someone who sews stitches, a tailor, if the last stitch is not tied well, so the stitching won't last. So a person has to tie up the Chag. We had great inspiration on the Chag. But if you don't tie it up, then it's just going to be fleeing. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says in Halicha Shloimei, the Gemara says in Brachas, someone who davens, sarach lishay sha'achas achar tfilasai. So in other words, you just daven. You can't just run out. You have to sort of bask in the elevation of the tefillah. This is similar, says Rav Shlomo Zalman, this is the concept of Isru Chag. I want to end off with one davar noira. Tosfos in Pesachim Kuf Gimel Amud Beis asks the following question. What's the halacha? Let's say on a regular Yom Tif. On a regular Yom Tif. Yes, you smell basamim after a regular Yom Tif? Just Yom Tif. No basamim. Why do you smell basamim after Matzah Shabbos? Neshama Yisera. So we don't smell basamim Matzah Yom Tif. That would seem to indicate Yom Tif does not have Neshama Yisera. So ask Tosfos, if Yom Tif doesn't have Neshama Yisera, why Shabbos going into Yom Tif? The first day of Yom Tif is Shabbos. Do you smell basamim Matzah Shabbos going into Yom Tif? No. What do you mean? If Yom Tif doesn't have Neshama Yisera, then you should smell basamim Matzah Shabbos going into Yom Tif. That's Tosfos' kasha. Does Yom Tif have Neshama Yisera or not? Mima nafshach. If it has Neshama Yisera, you should smell basamim Matzah Yom Tif. If it doesn't have Neshama Yisera, you should smell basamim Shabbos going into Yom Tif. That's Tosfos' kasha. Tosfos answers, Yom Tif does not have Neshama Yisera. But Yom Tif itself is a quasi Nechama. So Matzah Yom Tif, you don't have to smell basamim because Yom Tif doesn't have Neshama Yisera. But Shabbos going into Yom Tif, you don't need to smell basamim. Yom Tif is in lieu of the basamim. Yom Tif is a little bit of a Nechama. Says Rabbi Yitzchak Levi of Barditchev, the Shem Yishmo says the same idea. That what? That Avada Yom Tif has Neshama Yisera. If Yom Tif has Neshama Yisera, then why don't you smell basamim after Yom Tif? The answer is because Yom Tif doesn't disappear when Yom Tif is over. Why? Because who creates Yom Tif? It's Mekadesh Yisrael v'Hazmanim. We make the Yom Tif. We make the Yom Tif. We can hang on to the Yom Tif, as evident by the fact that we have Isru Chag, where we tie ourselves down to the Yom Tif. Ma'ashein Kein Shabbos is Kvi v'Kaima. Shabbos comes, Shabbos goes. There's no way to hang on to it. Therefore, Shabbos leaves, we have to smell basamim. So that's the difference. Says Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Barditchev, says the Shem Yishmo, Yom Tif has Neshama Yisera. The difference between Yom Tif and Shabbos is Kvi v'Kaima. Shabbos comes, Shabbos goes. Yom Tif, on the other hand, you can hang on to. Lamaisa Reb Tzadok HaKohen writes in the Sefer Machshavos Chorotz that there is an element of Malava Malka that you could hang on to Shabbos, but it's not quite like Isru Chag. Not the same way. It's like you hang on to it, but you're sort of, instead of it leaving on its own, you're escorting it out, but it's leaving. So therefore you got to smell the basamim. Matzah Yom Tif, you don't have to smell the basamim, because you can hang on to the Kedusha of the Yom Tif. But like the Agar de Pirka said, on Yom Tif, everybody had hisayrus in some way, in Limud HaTorah, in Avodas Hashem, and the objective of Isru Chag is to try to hang on to that as much as possible. And if a person could accept and be makabel even one small thing, so then you could translate the im ta'iru es ha'ahava ad shetechbatz into something tangible. Have a wonderful day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.